this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the odd count peyote duo bracelet kits. Now these feature odd count peyote, and we do have even count peyote as well. Now odd count is a little bit of a different technique, so it's a little slightly more advanced, but it's still a wonderful introduction into peyote. So we've designed 4 different kits. So we have up here, we have the Jasmine, and this is beautiful pink and purples and golds. And then we have the Zelda, which is going to be that lovely metallic, kind of Art Deco inspired. We have Harley over here, and this is that lovely argyle, and that's going to be in a green and pink. And then over here we have the Athena, which is the one that I'm going to be doing in the video for you today. Now you can see that one of these is slightly thinner than the other one, so we wanted to kind of create a little bit of visual interest for you. So you'll notice something about all of these patterns is that they all have a geometric pattern, which means they can be continued down the line and be continued as long as you like. However, please note that we've given you enough beads, and you can see down here I've given you 4 tubes of the color coordinated beads to make a 7.5 inch weave, and then the clasp adds a 1/2 inch to give you an 8 inch bracelet. So you'll be able to make both of these bracelets because we give you, again, like I said, enough to make 2 8 inch bracelets. Now, if you wanted to make, let's say, a 6.5 inch bracelet, you would weave 6 inches, stop your weaving wherever that happens on the pattern, and then add your bracelet to add that extra 1/2 inch. So just be aware of that as well. You can also start the pattern in between the sections. We do kind of lay out the pattern so that you can adjust it as needed, but as long as you're following the bulk section, you should be just fine. So what you're going to get in your kit is you're going to get 2 clasps. You're going to get one with 2 rings and one with 3 rings. You're going to get your crystal fire line. You're of course going to get your tubes of color coordinated beads, and you're going to get a package of 4 size 12 beading needles. The thing that you'll need to provide yourself is either a pair of snips, a thread zapper, or a pair of scissors, just to help you out with that thread. Now the other thing that you're going to get in your kit is you're going to get a few pieces of paper. So I just kind of want to show those to you for just a moment. I'm going to be going over how to do odd count peyote, but we have this nice little chart here that kind of explains it in a little bit further detail so that you can kind of follow along here. So we have our odd count peyote stitch, and then we have another sheet here that will help you go through attaching both sides of the clasp with your 2 rings and your 3 rings. And again, I'll show you this in the video here, but just to let you know, you will get that with the kit. Additionally, you'll get your appropriate color coordinated pattern. So for the one that I'm going to do here, you're going to see, and let me just kind of show you next to the pattern here. So you can see that this pattern, because we wanted to blow it up really big to let you be able to see it, it'll be color coordinated, but you can tell that this is not the entire pattern here. And the same with the one on top. So just so you know, we have our nice little start here, and you work down and you just sort of continue the flow of the pattern. Now each pattern does not start and end with the bottom. It's just to give you a rough idea so you can just find where that pattern starts to end and just continue to go back. So something just to consider when you are reading these patterns. We just wanted to kind of blow them up as large as we could so that you could officially get a chance to read them, and they're easy to read. They don't hurt your eyes. That's one thing that we always want to be careful of. All right, so here are the odd count peyote bracelet duo kits, and go ahead and pour out your beads, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so for this video, I'm going to be doing the Athena. And you can just follow along and follow your same pattern. So what you're going to do is you're going to be able to create 2 bracelets. So let me just kind of pull in the pattern sheet that you're going to get. So you're going to have your A, which is your thinner strip, and your B, which is your larger strip. So what we're going to do is, if you look at your odd count peyote stitch instructions, you can follow along here, but I just want to make sure that you guys kind of get your colors right here. So to begin, what you're going to end up doing, and let me just kind of pull this in the center here for you, is you're going to pick up the first 2 rows of beads. So it's the up, the down, the up, the down, the up, the down, all the way across. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to turn around and pick up our 3rd row of beads. All right, so for the Athena, our pattern is going to be 4 of these dark blue beads. I'm just going to kind of kick some of my beads out here just so I can kind of get them started. And you always want to add a stopper bead, especially with odd count. So I'm going to pick a color that I'm not going to be picking up in that first row. So for me, that's going to be one of my little teal beads here. Just go ahead and slide it down. And you want to leave a nice long tail of about 12 to 16 inches or so, because that is what we were going to use to attach our clasp. So all you're going to do is go back through that bead and pull it so that it catches on your thread there. So you just string it on and then just go back through it. So now you have a little bead stopper on your thread. All right, so we're going to start by picking up 4 of the dark blue beads. 3, 4. Go ahead and slide those down. And then for my gold, I have 1, 2, 3, 3, come on, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 7. All right, it's really important. You definitely want to get your pattern right, so take your time, especially in the beginning here. All right, and then we have 4 more blue beads. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so now you have, this represents your first and second row. So what we're going to be doing now is picking up the third row. So go ahead and kind of just hold it in your hand there. And the next bead, and let me just kind of show you on the pattern one more time. The next bead we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking that thread bridge and going around. So you're actually picking up that bead that sits just below that first bead there. All right. So for me, that is a dark blue bead. So pick that up. So now you're going to skip over that first bead and you're going to take your needle and you're going to go into that second bead right there. You see how I did that? All right. And then you're just going to pull it down. And then it's going to create a nice little sort of T. Okay? And you just want to give it a little bit of tension, so just go ahead and kind of scooch it down. All right, so now we are going to pick up another blue bead, because that is what is in our pattern. We're going to skip over, and we're going to go into that next bead there. So again, this sort of starts that jig jog that is peyote. It's different than loom. Loom all sits on the same path. So this is just sort of creating up and down beads. All right, so there we go. That's our first cluster there. All right, and next in our pattern, we have a gold bead. So we're going to pick up a gold bead, skip one gold bead, and go into the next. So it's always in this first row, it's skipping one and going into the next one. And that creates that little jagged edge. All right, and then we have another gold bead. Skipping over and going into the next one. Now I know it's hard because my fingers are kind of getting in the way there. I just want to let you know that we're just skipping over and going into the next one over and over. All right, and now we're going to pick up a light blue bead, skip over that gold, and go into the next one. Let me double check my pattern here. Oh, I misspoke. Sorry about that. That's not a blue bead. We'll get to him later. We have a gold bead. So we're actually doing another gold bead. And this is where you always want to double check your pattern with each little bead that you do, just to make sure. All right. Because the only way to kind of fix it is to just go back through and retrace your steps. So now I'm coming out that third one, and I'm going to be adding one more blue bead, skipping over and going into the next one. All right, and here is where we're going to do that odd count turnaround. So that teal bead that you have there, that doesn't count as a bead. That's just our little stopper bead. So I'm going to actually kind of scooch him a little bit out of the way there. All right, so now the trick is you need to get that bead with another bead on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a blue bead and we're going to go around the side there and we're going to actually catch and go through that bead on the bottom. You see how I did that? All right, so now I'm just going to pull that tight and then I'll move my finger out of the way in just a minute. And there we go. All right. So now I need to take that thread and go up through those next two adjacent beads. And what you're going to want to do now is kind of just, you can see how mine's a little wonky. You just got to kind of adjust it so that you get that nice little end, just like on the other side. All right. So now you're going to take your thread and go back through the bead that's just below there. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a little thread bridge. And then you're going to go through that center bead right there, pull through, and then you're going to go down, and then finally, the final portion is just to turn your thread around and make it go through that last bead on the end there. Now I'm going to do another row, and that first row is the hardest to do that turnaround just because you don't have anything to anchor it to. So now I'm going to kind of scooch my little stopper bead back up there. I'm going to do another row, and when I come back to the other side, I'm going to show you how to do that turnaround again. So now we're just going to follow our pattern here. So for me, it's a dark blue bead, and now you can just see for that third row, I now have a nice clean opening to skip over that bead and go into the next one. So then it just starts to sit nicely in there for you. All right, so I did that one, and then I'm gonna do, now I have a gold bead because we're starting that little triangle at the top. So again, just skipping over, going into the next one. All right, so gold bead, gold. There we go. And here's where my little blue bead comes into place. There we go. Now you can see it a little bit better. You just see how I'm going in through the little up bead that's right there. And now it's starting to feel just like even count peyote, because what we're going to do on this side here is just that nice clean little turnaround. So usually in even count peyote, you're coming out the side there, so you don't have to worry about adding that extra bead. So now you're ready to just turn it around and start your next row. So again, just continuing to follow along the pattern. Just pull it down through. There we go. And I'm going to be adding a gold bead. And then another gold bead. And now I'm going to add a light blue bead. And another light blue bead. There we go. And another gold bead. And this is it. This is the whole lovely relaxing process, and you can just kind of watch that pattern develop for you, and it's just really lovely. All right, so now I'm coming out that thread there, or I'm coming out that second little blue bead there. So what I'm going to do is I need to add another blue bead. So if I sort of string it all the way down, it's not really going to anchor onto anything. So this is where we do that turnaround. So this will be maybe a little easier to see. So you take that thread and you put it through the bead that is just below it there. And you're just going to pull that through. And now you'll see that that bead wants to sit right on top of it. And now go through the bead just above it, following that little thread path. So when you do this turnaround, what you're working with is those last little cluster of 5 beads that you have there. So now I'm going through that gold bead. And what that's going to allow me to do is turn around my thread, so you can see my needle's going back the opposite direction and going down through the bead just beneath it, and only that bead. And then you go through the center bead there of the little 5 cluster. And then you go through the bead that's just below it. So every time you move up a row, you're only working with the last 5 beads there. And then back through. And now we are ready to start our next row. So for me, that is a gold bead. All right, I'm going to get a little bit further, mostly so that I can do a little bit more work. I'm going to show you how to tie off and add new thread, but I am going to show you that turnaround here again, just in another minute, just so I can kind of get my fingers out of the way so you can just see how it happens every time. So I'm going to weave a few more rows and I will be right back. All right, so I'm just finishing up the last couple of beads here in my row. So you can see that I've gotten a little bit further and my pattern has developed very nicely. So now I'm coming again to that end where I'm going to need to add one more bead to that. So for my pattern here, it's going to be a teal bead. So I'm just going to kind of slide that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do this in one step. I'm going to get all the way through 3 beads there. Now, if it doesn't go through easily, don't force it. You don't want to break a needle or anything or hurt your thread. So now I'm coming out that blue bead at the top. I'm going to go down through the blue bead, the light blue bead, just beneath there. Okay, so you can see that I'm working with those 5 beads just right there. And then I'm going to go through the center blue bead. And again, I'm actually going to do this in one step. So you can see that I'm going through that blue bead and down through that teal bead. Just sort of worked out really nicely there for me. All right, and since we got to go back the other direction, we're just going to take our thread and go back through that teal bead on the end there. And now we're ready to start our next row. So what I'm going to show you now is how to turn around, or I'm sorry, how to tie off and weave in your thread. So once you've gotten to a certain point here, you just definitely want to work to tie off your thread. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a couple more beads, and I recommend you do this as well. Try to get towards the center of your beadwork. It'll just be a little bit of a stronger connection. All right, so I'm going to do one more bead here. And that puts me just about in the center. So now take your needle and go down through your bead, and you're going to catch a little thread bridge that's in there. So I didn't add a bead, I just went down into my beadwork there, and you can see I'm forming a little loop that I'm just going to bring my needle through, and I'm just going to pull it to tie a little knot there. And now I have a little knot, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this thread and I'm just going to weave it down into my beadwork, and you can just kind of zigzag and go back and forth. But the thing is you just want to follow that thread path because you don't want to have your thread laying across any beads there. So you can just kind of go down and into some beadwork. You can see that I just caught 2 beads there, just how it happened to work out. All right, and I'm just going to do one more little turnabout there. All right, so now I'm ready to cut off this thread. So for this, you can use your snips, you can use scissors, or you can use a little thread zap. And a thread zap works like this. You just open it up and you lift it, and then that little tip will heat up, and then you just touch it to the edge of the thread there. Let me see if I can do it with this one. I know my battery is running a little bit low, but the great thing about this is it just takes AAA batteries. All right, so let me see if mine is heating up. Oh, yep, it did. And it just sort of zipped right off there, so you can't even tell where that thread was coming out, which is just a really lovely, nice little look. Again, you'll get that with snips, but the closest snip is going to be those thread zaps. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to thread our needle with another little length of our fire line. And just cut off as much as you're comfortable working with at any given time. You're going to need a lot of thread to do these, so you'll probably be doing this several times for the project. So again, just thread that needle. There we go. And I'm just going to push it down there. All right. So now to get back into the bead weaving, I was going this direction. I was going north. So what I want to do is I want to move a couple of beads down and I want to go south so that I get a nice little turnaround there. So I'm actually going to go through this blue bead here. You can just kind of pick a spot and pull it down. I have a little tail there, and you don't need to leave a long tail because you'll just end up cutting that off in just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my thread around and go through the bead that is just above it and through one more bead there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that same thing I did before, where I'm just going to go behind the beadwork there, catch the thread bridge, create a little loop, and make a little knot. And now what I want to do is, instead of going down into the work, I'm just going to continue along the path that I was already working towards. So now I'm ready to add my next bead. There we go. And I'm going to add one more. And you don't have to do this next step I'm about to show you, but I like to do it. It just adds a little bit of security. So I'm going to go through and tie another little knot now that I've gotten a little further away into the beadwork. And tie. And now I'm ready to continue with my beadwork. So I like to add 2 little knots there. It's just a little security measure for me. I work really hard on my beadwork and I definitely don't want to lose it. All right, so now you just continue your bead weaving. And this is the exact same process as for the wider peyote. You just follow along the pattern to pick up the appropriate number of beads, but it'll still be that same turnaround. And whenever you're ready, you can snip off your little tails here and you can remove your little stopper bead. We don't need him anymore because our beadwork is nice and secure. So with these patterns, you'll be able to make 7.5 inches of bead weaving. Now for these patterns, I wanted to kind of blow it up and really let you guys see how it's going to develop. So I didn't want to put the entire pattern on here. It would have just been too small for you. So what I wanted to do is just showcase that you can continue the pattern throughout the geometry of it. They are all continuous patterns, so wherever you want to start and stop is up to you. If you wanted it to kind of match up nicely, you can definitely do that. If it doesn't match up, don't worry. They're just a really beautiful geometric pattern. So continue your weaving, and keep in mind that when we add our clasp, it'll add about 1/2 inch. So if you want an 8-inch bracelet, you'll do 7.5 inches of bead weaving, which is the maximum size of beads that we give you with these kits. Most of you will probably need a smaller size, so just please be aware of that as you're weaving. All right, so I'm going to continue this and I'm going to do the other one as well, and I will be back here to show you how to attach the clasps to finish off these beautiful bracelets. So once you've woven the desired length that you want, we've given you enough beads, again, to get to that 7.5 inches of bead weaving. And this clasp will add about 1/2 inch, so you'll end up with an 8-inch bracelet if you continue to weave as long as 7.5 inches. So what I want to point out to you is this is something different that happens in odd count peyote, and it's different from even count peyote, is the way that you're going to attach the clasp has a little bit of a different thread turnaround. So if I can direct your attention over here, what you're seeing is this is the very end of where I was bead weaving. So you can see that my thread is coming out that top bead there. Now on the other side, this is my starting position. So you can see that the thread is coming out this way. So all it means is we're just going to do an extra little turnaround for this side of the clasp. Now you can follow along with your instructional sheet, and we're going to do side A and then side B for the 2-ring clasp, and then again for the 3-ring clasp. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with that 2-ring clasp. Now what I like to do is follow along with sort of the pattern that's here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your thread and you're going to go down through the next bead here. So you're just going to kind of follow back through that thread path. So you're going to go down through one, and then we're going to come up through one, making sure to not loop your thread there. Down through one more, and you're going to come up through that final 3rd up bead. Now we're going to create a nice little bridge that goes across, and I'm right-handed, so I'm actually going to flip my work around, so just kind of follow with me here. So I just flip it. There we go. All right, so now we're going to create that first thread bridge. Now I'm coming out of a blue bead and I'm going to be going into a gold bead. So what I'm going to do is we need to pick up 4 beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 blue and 2 gold so that it kind of continues with my pattern. Now your color beads might be different there. You can also just use all gold or all green or whatever you like for this step. All right, so now I have my 4 beads and I'm just going to slide on 1 ring of my tube clasp. And those beads should fit nicely through the little hole there, so they can kind of slide around a little bit. So now take your thread, and you're going to go down through that gold bead that's right there, that fourth up bead, whatever color yours might be. And we're going to create a nice little loop. All right. So now we're going to continue our thread bridge, and we're going to go down through that next gold bead there, which is just your next down bead. And again, keeping good tension, you'll see it kind of pop into place there. And then we're going to go through that next up bead. And again, just making sure not to loop your thread. There we go. So now I'm coming out of a gold bead, and I'm going to go into that next up bead, and for me, that is a dark blue bead. So I'm going to pick up 2 gold and 2 blue. Again, coming from the back, going through that loop, and then we're going to go down through that blue bead. And now you can do one of 2 things. You can go ahead and tie off and weave in your thread, or you can turn it around and go back through. So if you wanted to tie off and weave in your thread, you do it just like before, as though you were adding some new thread, but I'm going to show you really quickly how to kind of turn around and just sort of retrace your steps just to get that little added security. All right, so I'm going to go through the second to last up bead there. And that's going to give me the opportunity to kind of go down through that gold bead, that one right beneath it there, to turn my thread around. And all these guys like to stick up a little bit, so we'll just make sure that we're not catching any of those. And then go through the next bead. And peyote is all about following that thread path so that you don't have all these little extra threads sticking up. All right, so now we're back to that little blue bead. I know it's getting a little tight in there to see, but I'm coming out that up blue bead. So all I'm going to do is just totally retrace my steps. So I'm just going to catch my needle and go into those first 2 blue beads. There we go. Through that loop. And you can kind of see on the back here, I'm just going to go down through the first gold bead and the second gold bead. And I'm going to come out the front there. And now I'm going to go down through that gold up bead. And this is just going just directly backwards, just retracing those steps. But again, this is just going to add a little extra security for when you are ready to tie off your thread. All right, I'm going to just move a little faster so it's the same process. Just keep following that thread path right there. And this is why you want a nice long tail to do this. You want about, I'd say 12 to 16 inches is probably good. But that way you don't have to worry about trying to squeeze your needle down in there and trying to turn it around and your thread popping out. So just don't make it harder on yourself. All right, so we are almost there. Okay, so I am just going through that third up bead, which is sort of that original bead there. So what I'm going to do next is go through one more bead. And now what I'm going to do is I have my clasp nice and secure there. So I'm going to take my thread and go through the back and catch that thread bridge right there. Get my thread out of the way. There we go. And create a little loop and a little knot. And then I'm just going to kind of thread it down into my work just through a couple of beads just to secure that knot in there. And you can just kind of go back and forth a little bit. It's up to you. Sometimes you'll catch 2 beads at a time like I just did there. That's totally acceptable. All right, so now I'm just going to lay my work down. And again, you can use your snips, your thread zap, or a pair of scissors. I love using the thread zap. It really seals in the fire line. So we're just going to press it down, heat it up, just the same as we did before. And we're just going to zap off that thread. So this side of our clasp is officially done. So what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the other side here, and I'm actually going to flip it around just so that you can see it. And let's go ahead and thread our needle again. So I've threaded my needle for the other side, so we're ready to continue with this side of the clasp. So I need my other end of my clasp, and make sure that your ends are facing the opposite direction because you want to make sure that nice tube clasp slides together for you. All right, so this is going to be considered side B because we have that thread coming out the side instead of coming out into the piece. So what we're going to do is all we're going to do is a very simple turnaround. So you're going to go to that bead just below it, and pull that through. And then slide my needle down there. We're going to do the same thing where all we need to do is to get that thread back to that third up bead. So you can see I'm just going through those last couple of rows there, just working my needle all the way over until it is coming out that third up bead. And in this pattern, that is going to be the gold bead. Now you can see that I'm going to go into another gold bead, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up 4 gold beads just to keep my pattern nice and happy. All right, so again, making sure to pick up your tube in the right direction and then go down into it. So now from here, it's just the same. It's the exact same. It's just that first little turnaround that is going to be a little bit more difficult for you. All right, so again, we have gold and gold. So I'm going to pick up 4 gold coming through the back and sliding down. And then we're just going to go through that next one. And again, you simply turn it around and go back the other direction and tie it off. So I'm going to move on to the other side of the clasp so that you guys can see that done as well. All right, so just set that aside. So now we're ready to do our larger portion here. So this is going to require a 3-ring clasp. So again, I have my piece here with the thread sticking out this way. Now again, I'm just going to flip my work around so that it's a little easier for myself to work with. And all I'm going to do is go down through that first bead. In this case, mine is a gold bead. And come up through that next blue bead. This should look very similar to the last one here. And we're going to still work our way towards that third up bead. So in this case, mine is that light blue there. All right, so now I'm coming out that third up bead, and you can see that I'm going to go into a gold bead. So picking up 2 blue beads and 2 gold beads. And now I'm just going to grab my clasp, going through the back there, sliding it all the way down, and going through that first gold bead there. All right, so now again, just kind of continuing along that thread path and through the next up one, and that is a dark blue bead for myself. So, and you can see that I'm going into a dark blue bead. So we're going to pick up 2 dark blue beads. I'm sorry, 4. And then we're going to go through the back and up the front and down through those beads. Now you can see sometimes I'm catching more than 1 bead at a time. If that happens for you, go for it. If not, don't force it. Don't forget, these are glass beads, so you definitely don't want to crack a bead, especially after you've done all this beautiful work. All right, so again, I have a gold, and I'm going to be going into a blue. So 2 gold and 2 light blue. Through the back and down the front. All right, and again, it is very simple. You just do that nice little turnaround. So what you want to do is get yourself to that side where you have the one up bead there. And then you can just turn your thread around and you'll be all set to kind of weave back through and get to your other beads. So I'm going to do this quickly and just kind of talk you through it. And then we'll get to the other side, but I'm sure you can guess how that one's going to go. These are really beautiful, beautiful patterns. And what I love is they're all geometric, so you can make various different color variations, and you can take the patterns and buy more Miyuki Delicas and just create and create and create, and they're just really, really fun to do. And I find it very relaxing to do this type of bead weaving. Just going through the back there. Sorry if my hands got in the way for a moment. There we go. Sometimes it's easier to just kind of flip it around in your fingers. All right. And I do recommend that you do this step. You don't have to, But while you're here and you have the extra thread, it's much easier than trying to mend it in the future if you do end up wearing it a lot or it wears out. Just be aware of that. I know sometimes thread can wear out if you end up going in the pool or something like that and you forget to take your jewelry off. It's all happened to all of us. So we just want to make sure that your jewelry lasts and is a beautiful quality. All right, so I'm getting to my last one here. And just going up there through the beads. And like you can see, sometimes I'm catching one bead, sometimes I'm just catching two. It just all depends. And there I caught all three. I'm just going back down through. All right, so now I'm just gonna go through one more little bead here, just to kind of get away from that clasp portion. And you can kind of see that I've got really good tension on it now. So you definitely want to give it a nice little tug. Don't pull too tight, but definitely want to make sure that it is going to be nice and secure for you. All right, and again, we're just gonna kind of go down through that thread bridge. It's getting a little tight in there. We've got a lot of thread at this very end here, so just be gentle with it. If you should crack a needle, it does happen, don't worry, but we've given you 4. That's why we give you guys a whole pack. That way you can continue your bead weaving, which is always fun. And now all I'm gonna do is, again, just kind of weave that down through into the bracelet. Making sure, again, not to catch that little end that sticks up there. All right, and through one more. Just going the opposite way. There we go. And I love that the thread sort of disappears in these, so you don't have to worry about it. So and again, we're just going to heat up our little thread zap and just sort of zap off that. I think mine needs some new batteries. There we go. Come on. You can tell that I have made a lot of peyote when it doesn't want to zap off anymore. All right, well, that's a good opportunity for me to show you the little thread snips. They work just the same way, and they still get nice and close there. So thread zaps to the rescue. All right, so now I'm gonna finish off the other side really quickly here for you. Again, I'm just gonna thread my needle real fast. So this is where we have that unique turnaround. So this is our starting point. So what you're gonna do is just go down through that bead that is just below it, and up through the next bead. And we're working our way towards that first gold bead there because that's our third up bead. And just remember that when you do finish your pattern, you want to have an up row. So that's why you get the thread going the way it is. All right, so let me separate out my tube clasp. I'm going to pick up 2 gold beads and 2 of the blue, the light blue, because that's what we're going to go into. I'm going to pick up in that third ring there and down through. And you guys know the routine by now, but I'm just going to go as quickly as I can to get you towards the end of this video. And if you should have any questions or comments about this, we love to hear them in the comments below here. So just shout them out and let us know if that you have any troubles with these so that we're here to help for you. Alrighty. And again, we're just going to go through that up bead there and 2 more blue beads and then 2 more of our gold beads. All right, and down through that gold bead. And again, you can go over a couple and then turn your thread around. So I'm going to finish this kind of quickly off camera, and then I'll be back to show you the very final product. All right, so now you have completed the Odd Count Peyote Duo Bracelet Kits. You can wear them alone or wear them together for a great look. All of our patterns are nice and coordinated. So you can get all of the supplies and you'll get these lovely little instructions as well. But if you do still have questions after watching this video, be sure to leave them in the comments below. And of course, you can get all of these supplies, even more beautiful jewelry kits, projects, and videos at beadaholique.com.